Alright, let's talk about it. Miles Garrett in a Cowboys jersey. Sounds crazy, right? But if you've been keeping up with the latest rumors, this might not be as far-fetched as it seems. And that's exactly what we're breaking down today. So before we dive in, make sure you're subscribed to the channel and drop a like if you want to see the Cowboys make a move like this. And hey, let me know in the comments, would you trade for Miles Garrett? Yes or no? Now, let's get to the real question. Does Miles Garrett actually want out of Cleveland? Reports have been swirling that Garrett might be unhappy with the Browns' direction, and honestly, can you blame him? Year after year, Cleveland has struggled to be a serious contender, despite having one of the most dominant defensive players in the league. Add in all the instability with coaching changes and quarterback drama, and you start to see why a guy like Garrett could be looking for a fresh start. And here's the thing: when superstars in the NFL want out, they usually get their way. We've seen it with Jalen Ramsey, Khalil Mack, and even Tyreek Hill. If Garrett is truly looking for a change, teams around the league will be lining up to make an offer. And guess what? The Cowboys are already being mentioned as a potential landing spot. But why would the Browns even consider trading a generational pass rusher? Well, Cleveland isn't exactly in the best financial situation. They've committed massive money to Deshaun Watson, and with other big contracts on the books, moving Garrett could help them regain some flexibility. So here's the big question: if Garrett really is available, could the Cowboys actually pull this off? Let's break it down. So let's get real. If Miles Garrett is on the market, the Cowboys have to be in the conversation. And according to early odds, Dallas is actually one of the favorites to land him. But should we really buy into that hype? Before we break it all down, make sure you're subscribed and drop a like if you think the Cowboys should make a move. And here's a question for you: do you believe Jerry Jones would actually pull the trigger on a blockbuster trade like this? Let me know in the comments. Now, why are the Cowboys at the top of the list? Well, for starters, Dallas has a history of being linked to big-name stars. Every offseason, it feels like we hear the Cowboys rumored to land some elite talent, whether it's a pass rusher, a cornerback, or even a wide receiver. But let's be honest, how many times does it actually happen? Exactly. But this time, it feels a little different. Dallas needs to upgrade its pass rush, and Garrett would be the perfect piece to take this defense to the next level. Plus, Jerry Jones loves making headlines. If there's a way to pull off a move like this without completely mortgaging the future, you know he's at least thinking about it. The real question is, who else is in the mix? Other teams with cap space and draft capital like the Bears, the Seahawks, and maybe even the Ravens could easily throw their hats in the ring. That means if the Cowboys want Garrett, they'd have to be aggressive. So now, let's look at what really makes this trade so intriguing. What would it be like to see Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons on the same defense? Because that's where things get scary. Now, imagine this: Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons lining up together on the same defense. That's the kind of nightmare that keeps offensive coordinators up at night. But how dominant would this duo actually be? Before we dive in, drop a comment. Would Garrett and Parsons be the best pass rushing duo in Cowboys history? Yes or no? Let's break it down. We're talking about two of the most explosive edge rushers in the league, both capable of wrecking a game by themselves. Garrett is a proven superstar, a former Defensive Player of the Year candidate who already has multiple double-digit sack seasons under his belt. And Parsons, he's the most versatile defensive weapon in the NFL. He can rush the passer, drop into coverage, and chase down plays from sideline to sideline. Pairing these two together wouldn't just be an upgrade, it would be a game changer. Look at some of the best pass rushing duos in NFL history. Von Miller and DeMarcus were in Denver, Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis in Indianapolis, even Lawrence Taylor and Leonard Marshall back in the day. Every one of those duos helped take their teams to a championship level. Could Parsons and Garrett do the same for Dallas? And then there's the scheme fit. Whether it's Dan Quinn or a new defensive coordinator running the show, having two elite edge rushers gives the Cowboys an insane amount of flexibility. Offenses wouldn't be able to double team just one guy anymore. They'd have to pick their poison, and no matter who they choose, someone is getting to the quarterback. But of course, all of this is just a dream unless the Cowboys can actually pull off the trade. And that brings us to the big question: what would it cost? Because getting Miles Garrett wouldn't come cheap. Alright, let's get real for a second. What would it actually take for the Cowboys to land Miles Garrett? Because if there's one thing we know, it's that elite pass rushers don't come cheap. Before we break it down, here's a question for you. Would you trade multiple first-round picks to get Garrett? Yes or no? Let me know in the comments. Now, let's talk business. The Cleveland Browns aren't just going to give Garrett away. If they're even considering moving him, they'd likely demand at least one first-round pick, maybe 2+ additional assets. We've seen blockbuster defensive trades before. Khalil Mack to the Bears, Jalen Ramsey to the Rams, even Von Miller's midseason move to the Rams' Super Bowl-winning squad. In every case, teams had to give up major draft capital to land a game-changing defender. And then there's the financial side of things. Myles Garrett isn't just an elite player, he's also on a massive contract. He's set to make over $25 million per year through 2026. The Cowboys already have big contracts on the books: Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb's upcoming extension, Micah Parsons eventually getting a record-breaking deal. Adding Garrett's contract would require some serious cap gymnastics. So could Dallas even afford this move without gutting the roster? Maybe. The team would likely have to restructure some contracts, release veteran players, or push a lot of money into the future, a risky strategy that could come back to bite them. This is where the real debate comes in. Would one superstar be worth sacrificing multiple picks and financial flexibility? Or would the Cowboys be better off spreading their resources across multiple key positions? And that leads us to the next big question: if the Cowboys don't make this move, what's their next best option? Let's say Jerry Jones decides against trading for Myles Garrett. What's the alternative? Because if Dallas isn't going all in on an elite pass rusher, they'll need to use those resources wisely elsewhere. So here's a question for you. Would you rather trade for one superstar or sign multiple solid players to fill different needs? Drop your answer in the comments. One approach would be investing in depth rather than one marquee name. Instead of giving up first-round picks and taking on Garrett's huge contract, Dallas could target multiple mid-tier free agents to reinforce the defensive line. Someone like Danielle Hunter or Zadarius Smith could bring pass rushing power at a fraction of the cost. Or maybe the Cowboys could go after a defensive tackle to strengthen the interior, something this team has needed for years. Another option: draft a pass rusher and develop him alongside Parsons. The Cowboys have done well drafting defensive talent in recent years: Micah Parsons, Darren Bland, Demarcus Lawrence back in the day. Maybe instead of trading picks for Garrett, Dallas uses those picks to find the next star edge rusher. And let's not forget, pass rush isn't the only concern. The Cowboys also need offensive line help, another cornerback, and possibly a more reliable running back if they want to stay competitive. Would spending all their assets on one player leave them too thin at other key positions? At the end of the day, this all comes down to one big decision: swing for the fences or play it safe? But that brings us to the final question: what are the real chances of this trade actually happening? So, after breaking down all the angles, does this trade actually have a shot at happening? Or is it just another offseason fantasy for Cowboys fans? The truth is, while the speculation is fun, there's no solid evidence that the Browns are even willing to trade Myles Garrett. His contract is structured in a way that makes it tough to move him, and unless Cleveland is planning a complete rebuild, it doesn't make sense to let go of their best defensive player. Then there's the Cowboys. Front office history: Dallas isn't known for making blockbuster trades. Jerry Jones loves to keep things exciting, but when it comes to actually pulling the trigger on a deal like this, he's been hesitant. Would he really break character for Garrett? But let's turn this over to you. If it were up to you, would you make this trade? Would you be willing to give up first-round picks and key assets to bring in one of the league's best pass rushers? Vote in the poll and drop your reasoning in the comments. Either way, this debate is just getting started, so make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell because if anything changes, you'll want to be the first to know.